Good evening. Welcome to the August 21 meeting of the Town of Orange Planning and Zoning Commission. Before we begin tonight's proceedings, I'd like to point out the location of the emergency exits. The main one is to my right, your left, midway through the room. The other two are located, again, to my right, your left, in the hallway in the back of the room, one immediately upon entering the hallway on the left-hand side, and one at the end of the hallway. I'd like to ask those seated at the table to please introduce themselves.
Tamara Costello, Administrative Assistant.
Rick Mangione. Paul Kaplan.
Paul Denise, Zoning Administrator and Enforcement Officer.
I'm Commissioner Walter Clark. Commissioner Oscar Parenti will not be available tonight, and Commissioner Judy Smith Morgan will be arriving at around 8 o'clock. The first item on tonight's agenda is an update on the study of the Marsh Hill Road / Edison Road project.
I emailed all the commission members a copy of the RFP and the cover letter that went out to it, and also all the list of everyone that we sent it to. It's probably 2 or 3 names that'll be added to that. Probably get that out tomorrow. A few additional names. I think there was one person that asked to be added, and 2 other additional ones came to mind. So, and if you want anybody added to that list, just let me know.
Have we had any responses to date?
It's kind of early.
Yeah.
But, you know, I expect some phone calls.
I didn't expect a plan, but I mean some phone calls.
No, I haven't gotten a phone call.
Okay. That's it. Any questions on that? No. The next item on tonight's agenda is a site plan application for 304 Boston Post Road. And this application also has an application for certificate of soil erosion and control matters. Would the applicant like to come forward?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Jeff Gordon. I'm President of Codispodian Associates, doing business 504 Boston Post Road here in the town of Orange. And as a follow-up to our previous meeting, we went back, met with the architect, and to try to enhance the building facade and utilizing the preferred materials. And I believe the packet should have been sent out to you that shows the different facade treatment. Hopefully you have that.
I did see it, and I don't see it here. I must have misplaced my copy. I did see it. I did have it with my paperwork. There it is.
The original application, you can see what we had proposed. I'm just holding up here up against the board. This was the original application for the facade treatment, where we had the anodized metal vestibule, the existing windows, and then we had some recessed blanks for the expansion of the building. And the modified plan, just hold them up as a comparison. You get a little more sense where we put the cultured stone along the bottom, 18 inches between the windows, and then we had the 18-inch high planter, raised planter along the balance, and then also the spandrel glass type windows instead of the recessed drive-it, in order to carry that theme throughout. So we hope that this is more in harmony with what the Commission will be looking for in the building. Again, just a reminder that this building was retrofitted about 3 years ago, so it is a rather new treatment, so we're looking to continue that theme. I believe that the builder, Mr. Clausen, has had some follow-up on the conversations with the fire marshal. If that was something else that was outstanding, want to address? Maybe he could address those points.
This is in response to the Fire Marshal's August 14th correspondence?
I don't have that in front of me, but he said that there were certain code issues that they were going to resolve and have a sit-down, and I'll let Mr. Clausen address that.
Okay. Would you like me to read the Fire Marshal's August 14th, and you can let us know if these address them? It It says an inspection of the facility known as Taylor Rental 304 Boston Post Road was conducted on August 14th at approximately 1 p.m. by myself and Deputy Fire Marshal James Vincent. Said inspection was conducted to determine existing building conditions and current compliance with the Connecticut Fire Safety Code. The facility representative during the inspection was Manager Terry Corner, who was present during the entire inspection. The main reason for the inspection was to verify field conditions of the existing structure and how it relates to the proposed building addition that is being considered. There have been no formal submission of a permit set for such addition. My main concern is the current unapproved use and occupancy of an old roof area which was being occupied as second-floor offices, break and storage rooms. This area was created by apparent roof renovations for which a building permit was issued in 1990 by the Town of Orange Building Department. The current roof surface that is in this upper area of the building is the old exterior roof, covering such as asphalt and tar over plywood, supported by what appears to be 2x8 wood joists. In addition, the building has numerous fire separation, exiting, and electrical issues that appear to be violations of CFSC. Please note the following items that were considered serious in nature by this office and need to be addressed immediately. The use of the occupied roof area as a second floor was not approved for such use by the Town of Orange Fire Marshal's Office and shall be discontinued for use until such approvals are granted. And then this is in the form of a question. Does the use and floor loading of this area of the building pose a structural issue to the existing roof and floor framing? A formal certificate from a Connecticut licensed structural engineer will be required to verify this. Number 3, the old roof covering poses a significant fire growth problem in a confined area which will lead to very early structural failure. Number 4, there are no fire separations present for the single means of egress from these areas, and there is no early fire detection equipment installed in any of the building that could warn occupants of a fire. Number 5, there is only a single means of egress from this upper area, and it is via a combustible, unprotected stairway that discharges to the lower level only. Number 6, there are no emergency lights or exit signs serving these upper floors. Number 7, there appears to be a temporary construction lighting and wiring being used as permanent lightings in the upper floor area. Number 8, any fire on the lower level of the building will quickly extend to the upper floor area via an unprotected opening used as what appears to be a freight elevator, and also up the unprotected staircase. In addition, there are numerous penetrations through the sheetrock ceiling of the lower level which will allow for fire extension. And one other issue that I have with this is we discussed the parking at the first meeting, and we discussed that there is being proposed is not enough to cover the use if we were to call it retail. Mr. Gordon did demonstrate that there would be sufficient room to add that if we required it. But if this, I'll call it a second floor, is going to be utilized, then we're adding additional square footage that was not calculated initially. So if you could comment on those.
Okay, I'm George Clausen, and actually this inspection took place as a result of my talking to Tim Smith and requesting his reviewing the building, because there was an indication that there were some things that did take place some years ago prior to Brett Lagasse, who's the son, taking over the operation of it. And so Tim provided this, and I've also talked to Fred Trotta to ask him to, again, I think he went in there Friday, to also look at any issues that might be existing so we could work this, resolve any things in the existing building. Tim had indicated that those are issues that prior to any building permit that would be applied for and received, these have to be resolved. And what we're doing now is we're looking at the alternatives to how we can resolve some of these issues, including installing a sprinkler system into the building and the proposed addition. Tim did indicate to me that he'd had no objection to the request for the addition, but again, the permit for the addition would not be reviewed until these issues were taken care of.
Okay. Jeff, could you comment on the parking, or are you prepared to comment on the parking?
The mezzanine area is shown to be 1,132 square feet, and as far as the square footage of the building is concerned, we have shown that. That's always actually been shown. We have the building coverage of 12,820 and the floor area of 13,860. That is on the plan and has always been shown on the plan. As far as the parking is concerned, we just showed the maximum that we would get on here now, but we also have loading dock, loading door, loading door, loading door, other loading doors. If it was converted to a retail use, you obviously would not have so many loading areas, and this area here could be reutilized with the parking running that way, and I could get considerably more parking in the area if I did that.
So even with the addition, if we took that floor area into the calculations, that would add 5 more spaces, and there's certainly room to add those additional.
Right, and that would be probably as an office or a storage use as opposed to a retail square footage. But for this use, I think even the architecture now lends itself more towards a retail or a medical office building if they were ever to sell the building. I think that it is a reasonable solution to the implementing of the preferred material. There are a number of perspectives that were also should have been included in your package as well. I don't know if you have them there as well, but I think that Mr. Robinson's group did a nice job with that. We did pull back that vestibule, and it's partially recessed into the building now as well, because I wanted to have the sidewalk clear in front of it instead of coming right to the edge of the parking as it was originally shown. And I realigned the handicap parking so I have a striped zone with a ramp right in front of it, because people bring back rented objects and they go straight through the door into the operation.
Okay.
So, if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to try to address those.
I'm sure Paul and Rick both had a chance to view the tape, and what was in question here was that there was really not.
I did review the tape regarding, you guys were talking about the propane tank that you were installing with the fence.
Yeah, I had a question with that
Is
too,
there
as to
gonna
why
be-
they wouldn't have bollards there, but you said that was reviewed by the fire marshal?
Yeah, but it
Yes.
should, that's what I was gonna say, you should have bollards there. I mean,
We can add some
or
lollipop.
even if you use 4-inch fence posts, and they could be bollards.
That's
You know
not a
what I mean?
problem.
I mean,
I would think that, you know,
just-
if a fence load is required, that's fine, but I think that it's, I would
But a
rather see
4-inch,
something.
yeah, if you use a 4-inch fence post, those could be like a bollard also if they hit the fence. I mean,
Well, we have it fenced in now, but if we want to add a couple of concrete-filled bollards there, I have no objection to that.
I think it's a better suggestion.
at the tape, and, you know, I just figured, might as well throw them in there,
Yeah,
just in case.
I would agree.
That's a good suggestion.
Do you have any concerns about the architectural standards? Yeah, and really, you know, the building was just redone a couple years ago, and that's kind of the catch-22. Before we had the kickoff point was, I think, 10,000 square feet before you even were, the architectural standards were applied. So when the owner redid the building, I think you said it was 3 years ago, if I recall?
Yeah. Yes.
He didn't need to address the architectural standards and didn't. But now, you know, we do have a relatively new building, so it's, you know, we're trying to get something in there, but without being overbearing on the business owner. Yeah. And Paul, with regard to, do we have to make it a condition of approval that these issues be taken care of, or is that going to be a matter of course because the fire marshal or the
It would
building?
be a matter of course, but I think we should include it in our approval, especially since it was part of the signature process that was on the site plan.
And do we have the other required signatures?
Yes, we do.
Are there any questions or comments from the public? Any more questions for Mr. Gordon or the applicant? Is anybody prepared to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the site plan application submitted by the owner Eugene Lagasse for the property known as 304 Boston Post Road, Taylor Rental Building. I'd like to put as a condition that the letter from the fire marshal dated, I think it was August 14th, 2007, to Mr. Brett Lagasse be incorporated for its conditions into our approval, as conditions for our approval, I should say. In addition, that there be concrete bollards placed around where the propane is located on, what that section of the, well, where the propane is located.
Do we want to be specific as to how many we require? Because it is kind of open to this on the side and also in the front.
Or just say as long as a car can't get by it, you know, that's what's going to hit it.
So I would think it would require 2 on the side and at least 1 in the front.
Probably 3 of them.
Yeah.
And I'll make that part of the motion as well.
Okay.
Also, our standard conditions as far as bonds and
Okay. We have a motion.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. The next item on tonight's agenda is a site plan. Oh, before we go, also with this, we also have an application for a certificate of soil erosion and sediment control measures that coincides with this, and they explained where they're putting the silt fence and the drains and so forth. So we look for a motion to address that.
I'll move that we approve that as well.
A motion, second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion's approved unanimously. The next item on tonight's agenda is a site plan application submitted by property owner Ken Ginsberg for property known as 307 Racebrook Road, formerly the Recreation Showroom. The proposal is to modify an existing 9,087 square foot retail building to a 6,250 square foot medical/professional office building, and an architectural standard supplement has also been submitted.
Good evening. My name's Rick Raymond with Anthony Giordano's. At our last meeting, I believe there was two further comments were warranted. One was we had a meeting with traffic last Monday, which we did get approved.
So the plan was approved by the Orange Police Commissioners?
Yes, and I believe Mr. Ginsberg's not here tonight, but I believe he got all his sign-offs. And I don't know if Paul can concur that.
Okay. And we had the letter from DOT as well that was submitted.
So all the comments have been addressed. The one comment was a 15-foot easement, which the surveyor of record is working with Ernie to work out that terminology, and it's more of, the easement is more for storing snow and stuff like that.
Okay. Ernie would be Ernie LaJoya from the Connecticut DOT.
When I was reviewing the DVD, was this the application that required or had the issue with the tie-in for Webster Bank?
Yes, it is.
What's the status?
I finally did get some callbacks from Susan, I forget her last name, Susan Curtis. However, our calls just kept missing the past couple of days.
Okay. But the applicant is prepared to put the easement on the land records on his property, permitting the...
For DOT, yes.
Well, no, with the interconnection with Webster.
To the back.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. You would have no...
Yeah. And if time permits...
I think we can get it accomplished.
Okay.
You know, again, it's to Webster's Bank's benefit to do that, because the next time they come in under any permit process, they're going to have to pay for it themselves. Right. It would seem to me that, you know, I know the parking spaces that they're talking about over there, they're not utilized. They were never utilized in all my times there visiting the property, and I was there 4 or 5 times. So, you know, I don't see a reason why not to do this, especially in light of the fire marshal feeling it's going to provide better emergency services on both properties.
And also at the last meeting, you addressed the issue of the height. You're going to increase the height of the
Yes,
stone,
we
I believe,
did.
in
It
the
shows
front.
on, I do have a final set of plans for the board
Okay.
that I would like to submit.
Tammy, or... Okay. Are there any questions or comments from the public? Any further questions from the commission? Is anybody prepared to make a motion?
For the record, I think I recused myself from this application. Sorry about that, guys.
We're going to have to wait for a vote then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it could
we would
occur
like a
later this
quorum.
evening.
We can,
Yeah,
hopefully,
Could occur-
when one of the other commissioners arrives at a later date, we can... She's coming.
I mean, if he wants to wait, I don't know.
Yeah, well, let's, yeah,
Right.
if you'd like, she should be here shortly after 8, although we'll have the public hearing at that time. So we kind of have to brief her again. I forgot about Paul recusing himself.
So do I come up and do the presentation again, or?
I think we can summarize the presentation to her, but I think it might be to your benefit to stick around. I hate to have you do that. but-
Okay. Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
The next item on tonight's agenda is a request for extension of permits for St. Barbara's Greek Orthodox Church located at 480 Boston Post Road for special permit application, site plan application, and temporary special permit earth excavation and fill. Is there anybody here to represent the applicant?
I think George was notified. He knew the date was tonight.
I don't think we can take any action without an explanation, at least. I don't have any objections.
He may be here later, I don't know.
Okay. I think we should at least, yeah. The next item on tonight's agenda is a review of the minutes from the August 7th, 2007 meeting, which we can't do either. I do have a couple of comments on it, actually, because Rick and Paul were away at that, they were on vacation. No, okay, we'll go forward with it.
They weren't part of you.
Yeah, they can't, yeah. I do have a couple items that we should look into, though. Let me just take them out here. And again, we'll have to ask for approval at our next meeting because I don't think Commissioner Parenti will be in attendance today at all. Okay, on page 1, we're talking about the traffic, and it's signed, it's just a letter was received from Ernest DeGoya. It's actually LaGoya spelled Lagoja, and here it's Degoia. Right. So it's Lagoja. On page 4, the language here, Tammy, in these two paragraphs appears to be just a duplication from this sentence forward. As there were none, a motion was made by Judy Smith Morgan and seconded by Oscar Parenti to close the public hearing for special permit application for the conversion of a single-family dwelling, 196 Orchard Road. The motion carried and so on. And then the next paragraph duplicates that language.
I think one was to close the hearing and one was to approve
Okay.
it.
One is to close the public hearing.
Okay.
And the next is to accept and approve the special permit application.
Okay, I'm sorry, that's my mistake then. So you're right. You're all set there. And those were the only two issues that I had. Oh, one other thing too, Mr. Gordon left, I wanted to check with him. On page 6, and I don't know if we can do this by memory, perhaps Rick and Paul remembered, or Paul, Denise. On page 6, where Jeff Gordon had told us about establishing the loop and the city water, he stated the water pressure, what the water pressure would be. I believe it was 67 pounds, correct?
68, I thought.
I thought it was 60, but it was 67, 68 pounds?
I thought he said it was going from 28 to 68.
I thought it was 67, but we should change that to an excess of 60 pounds. Instead of this would result in stronger water pressure. Perhaps we should, I think it's kind of an important issue. It's,
We can go back on the seat.
yeah, and see, because he did say a specific amount of pressure, and I think that's an important issue, and I think the minutes should reflect what they stated it would be. So we'll address those issues.
St. Barbara's might be here.
Yes. And then we'll have to take a vote of this at our next meeting, actually. I did see the representatives from the St. Barbara's Church come here, and if you'd like to come and address the commission, please.
George Scarvellis. I represent the St. Barbara's Greek Orthodox Building Committee. We are here tonight to seek an extension of a previously granted permits for the construction of our hall, church, and for material to be moved in and out of the St. Barbara Greek Orthodox Church on 480 Racebrook Road. This evening I have with me Father Peter Orphanakis, the Reverend of our church. The reason that we are seeking this extension is that our project started a while back, and when we got our permit, we forwarded the drawings to the office of Bruce Spiewak, the architectural engineering firm, for review, for a compliance review. They have done a fantastic job, and the work has produced many recommendations of the new changes. All of these recommendations, I'm glad to say to you, have been made to the drawings and are now waiting for Bruce Spiewak's office final review to be presented to the town, and I expect that to happen within the next week to 10 days. During that time, we ran into some other difficulties in the site development, and that is that the fire marshal had originally thought of a plan to put the fire hydrant on Sunset Drive, and we had to do water testing with the Regional Water Authority to put a new 8-inch line across Racebrook Road and into our property, again with additional hydrants. This work included new lines to the two homes at 47 and 46 Sunset Drive, respectively. All of the engineering had been done, and the last moment we realized that it would be better for the Town of Orange Fire Department if we had a 4-inch dry line at Racebrook Road, where in the event of a catastrophe, the fire department would be able to charge that 4-inch line and energize the sprinkler system. All of the engineering has been complete. Contracts with the water company have been executed, and the final easement is now being processed for that project. For that reason, we are looking to get started hopefully by the 15th of September, but definitely this fall we will be in the ground. We will be scheduling a meeting with the Planning and Zoning Department, what we call the contractors meeting, and selecting our septic system contractor this coming Thursday, and shortly thereafter contacting the appropriate town officials for that meeting. For those reasons, we would like to ask this commission to please extend our permits for 1 year.
Paul, do you have any issues?
No, they've been in close contact with my office. We had an issue with the septic work, which we were aware of in the spring, but since that time they've been working extremely closely with all the various departments to get that accomplished.
Are there any comments or questions from anybody in the public? Any comments and questions from the commissioners?
Was this Paul, was this the site where they, I don't know if they cut trees or were digging like
That's correct.
a neighbor's property, or
Right.
really their property, but...
Right, and they abandoned, they were going to be stockpiling the, some soil there, and they've abandoned that plan, decided not to use that property.
Mr. Scarvellis, you mentioned several changes, numerous changes that have been made to the plan. Any of these require planning and zoning approval?
No, they were recommendations. There were some changes in the regulations that had to do with code compliance. So what we did is we took the recommendation of Spiewak's office and upgraded our drawings with hardware for doors, fire ratings and things of that nature there that made it a better project. But unfortunately, some of these modifications required the signatures of the town building inspector, the fire marshal, and the state. So the modification had to be circulated, and it took literally weeks and months to have all of those modifications, but they all have been submitted. The town has signed off on them so far as the building department recognized them, the fire marshal signed off, and the state has, and we're now ready for that final set of drawings to be brought to the town.
And that those comments that you just made include the 4-inch pipe that you mentioned and the going across Racebrook Road?
Yes, they were originally we were crossing Racebrook Road with just the 8-inch water main. The dry fire hydrant fire marshal felt just in case there was a catastrophe, and if there was a car in the way between the buildings, that he could energize the system right from Racebrook Road, and would not have to have hoses laying across Racebrook Road. Again, it was more of a safety feature for the...
So that was his suggestion?
Yes.
Okay. I've got nothing else.
Are there any other questions or comments? There being none, does anybody care to make a motion?
Sure. Just one other question. Paul, they have all their sign-offs from Tim Smith?
Yes, I've talked to, right, and again, they've been working closely with Tim. And the only other suggestion I would have is that all the approval conditions remain in force. And we're going to have a pre-construction meeting
Correct.
on this, and we'll still require a bond. Need a bond on it.
All right. I'm just looking around for my...
I don't think we have it.
I thought it said something.
Got a letter there.
I'll make a motion that we approve the special permit application and site plan application submitted by the Greek Orthodox Church of St. Barbara for the property known as 480 Racebrook Road.
We have a motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is Mr. Kravitz in the audience? We had a request from Mr. Kravitz contacted me and wanted to address the commission. At this time, since we have a little bit of time, would anybody care to make a motion to add his address to the agenda?
I'll move it.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Please come up and address. I did explain to Mr. Kravitz, because it's being added to the agenda, that he could just really present his concerns, and that we would put this as an agenda item on our next meeting. But he wanted to, to bring his concerns to light, and then we could discuss them and debate them at a further meeting.
And I appreciate that. I know it's last minute. I guess I come here as a property owner of 500 Boston Post Road and the new building at 391, the LASIK Plus building. Both properties of which I am extremely proud of, and I take great pride in the way they look, and I love this town. My issue is with the proliferation of sandwich board signs, banners, grand opening, signs, flags, etc. on the Boston Post Road. For the past 30 years, I was under the impression that all of those signs were illegal. And I'm here to tell you it's out of control. On August 3rd, from my vantage point at 500 Boston Post Road, a sign went up for the corner pocket, big sign, advertising 25-cent beers at happy hour, and in my opinion, enough's enough. I then took maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and drove only between Peck Road and Lambert Road, and I counted 50 signs that I was under the impression were illegal. So the reason I'm here is because you have never seen those signs or any of my tenants display those signs at either one of the properties. But the pressure that I now face from my tenants who simply want a level playing field is too much for me to take. So I will say I have known and worked with Paul for many, many years, and he was extremely attentive to my first letter. But there's a few things that I just don't, for the life of me, can't comprehend or understand. And there now, as of today, 22 remain. I'd like to start off, and I hate, Tammy knows, I hate being the complaint department, but you have the Liberty Square Center and their pylon sign, and that whole shopping center is completely out of control. We built a new building before I could get a very desirable tenant for this town and for my building, and believe me, I was pretty personally motivated, but it was great for the town to have LASIK Plus. They're a national Fortune 500 company. They bring in tremendous tax revenues to the town, and before I could get the certificate of occupancy, I needed to have the building inspector come and measure the height from the ground level to the bottom of our sign, which very clearly states it's got to be 10 feet, okay? And so, obviously, we honored that. Why wouldn't we? The Liberty Square sign is maybe 6 inches off the ground. I've brought my concerns to Paul, and I've been told that the property owner won't be issued any building permits unless he comes into compliance with the codes. And for the life of me, as a businessman, an MBA, a property development individual, I do not understand the correlation between illegal signage and building permits. That's number one. If in fact you don't believe that the signage and what these businesses are doing is out of control, I'll give you one point of example. There's a business, Must Have Shoes. Okay, they actually had the nerve to put signs on 500 Boston Post Road. And so that's outrageous to me. Okay, now, we have a situation where there's a temporary business, and I am so adamantly opposed to allowing temporary businesses, which I like to term fly by night, come into this town, which has an upscale reputation. And I'm making reference to a business called Spooky Town. Okay, they've got 3 banners. You know, they directly hurt a business owner, property taxpayer right across the street. I don't know him. I spoke to him today. He's sick. He said it's enough to keep you up at night. And I know for a fact that that same practice of coming in for 2 months, capitalizing on a holiday season, probably, I can't put a dollar amount, but it's substantial. And I'm telling you, it's not fair. And I've also been told by Paul that temporary or new businesses are allowed leeway for a certain period of time. And I don't understand that one bit. Why would a temporary business, someone that's not established themselves, have any more rights or privileges than someone who is playing by the rules? You know, my tenants, and I'll wrap it up, I've already taken too much time. I do want to be on the next agenda for September, but you know, my tenants come to me and they want to do the same thing. And I am a certified master gardener. I take great pride in the fact that at 500 Boston Post Road, we were the first business or property to really spend significant dollars on beautification. And I'd much rather see, as I've told everyone involved, I would much rather see a beautifully manicured green strip, which is, I think, why there's a green strip requirement in the town, with perennials and annual flowers and just something that people can drive by and just go, wow, it's beautiful. I question a business like Spooky Town. My wife, and I chastised her today, because she said to me that last year she went in and bought a costume for my son, and the person said, because she was one of the first ones in there, and the person, I don't know who it was, but a manager of some sort said, I'm not going to charge you tax, you know, thanks very much. So if I have to be the leader of this, I'm happy to do it, but that is not right, and I don't understand really any of it. I mean, banners on buildings, I mean, our tenants just haven't been allowed to do it, and it's not from me. You know, we've got a business, Diamond Design, and I watched this guy, a young guy. It's like a flashback of my youth, and I see him trying everything right. You know, he advertises thousands and thousands of dollars, billboards. He's in every town magazine. He's hosted the Chamber of Commerce, the Rotary Club, and the town officials at his grand opening. And when he comes to me and asks if he can put a sandwich board sign up on the front advertising a Mother's Day sale or Valentine's Day, you know, I'm really put in a bad position. I think you all know how I feel at this point. It is an issue that I don't think can wait. And I also think that while the first sweep was done very effectively, there are still 20 signs that remain, and I would bet my bottom dollar that a month from now, we're going to have 50 more, because these people do not care. Okay? So where you guys go with this, or where the town goes with it, I don't know, but that's it. Complaint Department. Rob Kravitz, 500 Boston Post Road and 391 Boston Post Road.
I thank you for coming forward, and we will have this item on the agenda next week. A couple of items that I'm familiar with, and one I became familiar with just briefly when I spoke to Paul before the meeting tonight. First of all, Paul has begun a program of going down and physically taking the signs. Now there's limits on it. You can't go take one that's attached to a building and things like that, and there are certain limits that you can and can't do when you start a program like this. But he has been fairly successful in taking the signs. You've done 3 sweeps?
We did a sweep of the Post Road near the Milford border. And last Thursday we did one near the West Haven border, and this coming Thursday we'll be hitting the streets between Racebrook and I believe Orange Center.
And the hope is, as Mr. Kravitz pointed out, you do this and then you go back 2 days later and the signs are back. But the hope is that people will get tired once this catches on, that they know their signs are going to be taken away, that this will be somewhat of a discouraging factor is our hope.
There are other enforcement strategies being considered, and part of the problem too is that if I issue a $150 fine or $100 fine, I forget what it is, under our citations ordinance, sometimes they're glad to pay that. Yeah. I did discuss with our town council about a week ago or so the possibility of issuing infraction summons.
What's the difference?
Well, an infraction summons is issued by a police department. I would make a statement out to the police officer and also cite Section 8-12, which is a violation of the Orange Zoning Department. And quite frankly, most times they're even fined less than $100. However, it requires an in-court appearance. That means that whoever gets fined has to go down to the courthouse, sit around at 9 o'clock, maybe wait till 11, 12, or possibly 1 or 2. And that seems to be more persuasive than just the issuance of a fine. Oh. But there are other strategies. I think when Mr. Kravitz was referring to the Liberty Square sign, what I told him was that we would no longer issue any zoning permits or building permits for any change of occupancy or within the structure. That was not a limitation in terms of the action we're going to be taking against the owner, however. That's just one means.
It's just another avenue.
If they go to court, would it be the owner?
What's that?
The owner of the property?
Well, we normally chase after the property owners, I mean rather the business owners, but that has not been successful with regard to the pylon sign. So I did talk to Mr. D'Amato about that.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions.
There was a meeting that was scheduled that I had to cancel. due to conflicting
And
schedule.
you also did have a discussion with the town attorney regarding the temporary businesses and temporary banners as well. And
Well, I didn't discuss temporary banners with Attorney Marino, but I think the business that Mr. Kravitz is referring to is a business that came in occupied the space of the former porch and patio building last year for probably about 2 months, and we did permit a temporary banner to be erected, and I did have discussions with the owner with regard to an approval. He had faxed me over a copy for one banner, and it does require a sign permit to be issued, and I will be down there tomorrow. I had a discussion with him in my office about that today. However, that being said, there are instances when we do approve temporary banners.
Like when, Paul, for grand openings?
Well, no, not really for grand openings, but we have approved a temporary banner with regard to a special sales event that has come before you for an outdoor display. But something that you have not been involved in, and that is these temporary businesses. It's pretty much been our policy, the building inspector and mine, that if there's a temporary sign that's going to be up there for a month or two, as in this case, we may not require it to be of a permanent basis. But if a merchant tells us that a sign is going to be erected permanently, we have required that sign to be of a permanent nature, to be affixed to the building, so that we don't have any issues with the blowing off the building. Anyway, that's the position we've taken.
Are temporary businesses allowed under our regulations?
Yes, they are. Now, that being said, that's a different issue than the sign issue, but I have had many discussions with Fred Trotta, because these temporary businesses do create a lot of problems. They usually come in without us knowing about them, occupy buildings that maybe have been vacant sometimes for a year, 2, 3. Usually there's a proliferation of signs that go up as soon as they open. We're not aware of it. In some businesses, there's the sale of fireworks, which, the fire marshal never gets involved with an inspection. We don't know how they're stored. And I did have discussed this with Vin, I think, a day or so ago. But I've had numerous discussions with the building inspector, and have also talked to the first selectman about it. But,
I got a couple of suggestions.
This might be something to consider. I don't set the policy.
No, but we do as a board, right?
Right.
Okay.
And that's why I think we want to put this on the agenda for our next meeting, so we can have this discussion without violating any FOI things. But that way, we can have it on our agenda. We know what Mr. Kravitz's concerns are and what Paul's addressed, and I can speak to Mr. Marino and get some ideas on how to address these issues, and have a further discussion at our next meeting. Thank you very much for coming. The next item on the agenda is old business. I have nothing under old business. Moving on to new business. I guess we just discussed something for new business at our next meeting. Number 8 is the report of the zoning enforcement officer.
There's a number of issues. I don't know if we'll have time to get to all of them before 8 o'clock, but one that certainly comes to light is you have a copy of an abatement order that was issued to Cuz Acres. It was in your packet. This came to light in my office. I got some calls from the adjacent Avalon development. There was a parcel, at one point this parcel extended from Indian River Road, wrapped around the cul-de-sac of Edison Road, around Wallach Surgical? Not Wallach Surgical, the jewelry place on Edison Road, and is a parcel that it's sort of a backward C-shaped, and the top of the C meets the Avalon property. I got a call that there was a great deal of earth material activity, heavy trucks made an inspection there, and found that there was an extremely large disturbed area of soils. I'm going to estimate, to give you an idea of parcel size, maybe about this two Springbrook developments, if you're familiar with that development on Indian River Road. A very significant and substantial disturbance, clear cutting of trees that were extremely mature. Some of them were at least 20 to 25 years old. Encroachment into wetlands, absolutely no sedimentation and erosion control. I met with the property owner, Principal Ernest Cazacrio, Scott Allen, and Mr. Alex Cazacrio on Thursday. There were significant encroachments into wetlands areas. We informed them that they would have to cease and desist all activity. In addition to this, they were trucking soils from the top part of the further expanse of the driving range, where we also had an issue with a paintball facility a couple of years back. There was a pile of topsoil. They were trucking the topsoil there, across town roads, down past the jewelry development and into that portion of the property. The town roads were dirty, filled with dirt. There was no special permit for a temporary special permit to move these earth materials, which were far substantially in excess of 400 cubic yards. I couldn't even begin to estimate the amount of materials that were moved, but it had to be 20 times that amount. Also, we informed them that they would have to immediately cease and desist. Scott Allen instructed them to remediate some of the wetlands, significant wetlands violations. And the next day, the trucking of materials continued. We've also called in the Connecticut State DEP, has not investigated the property.
Was a cease and desist issued?
Yes, it was. More materials also were brought to the property through the Stu Leonard's property, and it's my understanding, I have not had an opportunity to talk to any representatives from Stu Leonard's, but they have been contacted, but no permission was given to truck the materials across their property. It does appear that way. I'm going to confirm this tomorrow.
It's my understanding that they're coming out to inspect their site tomorrow as well.
Okay. I wasn't aware of that, but I do have a call into them. I know that I heard from a representative of the property owner that they have contacted an attorney. I think the scope and the significance of this violation is such that we begin court proceedings against the property owner, and I did let Vin know I was going to make that recommendation today.
Do we need a motion?
You would need a motion to do that. I know there is a representative from the property owner here.
Did he say why he was doing this?
They want. Well, I guess at one point it was used for growing some pachysandra. Their intention now is to locate some greenhouses there. I instructed them that if they were going to do that, number one, it would require a variance because it would be an expanse of what is now a non-conforming use. At one point, farming was a permitted use. The greenhouses, even if farming was a permitted use, is a structure, and that at the very least would require a TPZ approval, and certainly a temporary special permit for earth materials, and certainly a sedimentation and erosion control application.
Additionally, their purpose really has nothing to do with, no matter if your purposes and your intents are pure, the fact that you went forward with these items without getting the proper approvals and without taking the necessary steps, sediment control and so on, and permits and coming forward planning and zoning, it doesn't matter. These are some serious violations that Paul's described, and I think we should proceed with court proceedings. We can always stop them if the person becomes in compliance. But again, why delay?
Yeah, I know a representative of the property owner is here tonight. I told him I was going to be going forward with this.
Well, we've got about 2 minutes if the representative would like to come forward. Hello.
Good evening. Alexander Cazacrio. I spoke to Paul Denise. I actually think this is a massive misunderstanding. We sold one part of the farm where Paul is describing is the section where we used to grow all the material. We moved the pachysandra plants and the potting soil from one part to the other part. I don't understand how he comes up with an estimate when it's pretty easy length times width, and you would come up with the number of yards that is there.
Well, that would be surface area, length times width, and you'd also need height to determine
Correct,
volume.
correct, you would need height. You know, 4 times the size of a project is, I don't think is a very
So how
professional.
many yards?
We say there's between 250 and 300. And how he couldn't know how much material was already on the property.
The way our regulations, it's not a matter of just trucking the material. If you push the material around on the property, that also becomes the subject of a temporary special permit. So even if you are not removing the soil from the property, if you're just pushing it around with a backhoe, that constitutes
Area of disturbance.
an area of disturbance. That's correct. So if you're just pushing around more than 400 cubic yards, never mind moving it. And I think it's very easy to see if you go to half the property. You can see that it's far in excess of 400 cubic yards.
And did I understand properly that you issued a cease and desist and then the work continued afterward?
That's correct.
And I think that's the reason why we have to proceed along legal channels immediately. And as I said, you can always pull that back.
Well, we have tried to come with compliances. Scott Allen has asked for silt fences. We have done that. Scott Allen asked for a silt fence. That was the reason why we were pushing the dirt. He asked us to push the dirt. And it was kind of difficult to do that with Paul saying, do not push dirt.
Well, there was additional work. There was additional soil trucked in, Alex. And also, I made an inspection today, and there was asphalt located along the road that had also been deposited since last Thursday.
Well, that was just to firm the road.
But you were told not to do anything like that. I know we said don't bring any more material,
Well,
don't do any more road work.
That material was already there. That was just moved onto the road.
Has there been any applications made by you to the zoning department at all?
I went, saw Paul, got the applications, and
So there's been no applications made to the zoning department?
correct.
So the cease and desist exists, no applications have been made, and after the cease and desist, there was still some activity that occurred?
Well, from 383-2, it says no certificate of zoning compliance, however, is required for farm. So I didn't think by what you guys are saying there was a,
If this was a matter of just plowing up a field and planting Pachysandra, I don't think there would be any issue.
well, the Pachysandra is already planted. We were just moving the flats of Pachysandra that we transplanted from it.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, Alex, is that what occurred there went way beyond planting. I think you can clearly see trees that probably had a maturity of 25 to 20 years cut down. There's stacks of them out there.
Those trees have been there for probably 30 years. There's
Again, all that soil was disturbed. There was no S&E controls placed in there.
well, that's why we moved it for Scott to put up the silt fence, and we did put up the silt fence.
But it goes beyond just a silt fence. There's an application for S&E controls. It gets reviewed. This would go to wetlands review because it does border and also extend into the wetlands,
For the
correct?
past 100 years, my family has moved soil in and out of that farm, and we've never had an issue until we sold part of the farm, and then there was an issue.
I don't think there was that degree, anywhere near that degree of disturbance, though, Alex.
Well, I came to your office today, and days before, trying to come to compliance, trying to help in any way, and I've just.
Well, you did come in today, yes, but again, there was more activity on Saturday, from what I understand, and certainly on Friday.
There was no activity Saturday, and the only activity Friday was putting up the silt fence.
No, I stopped the truck going in from D'Amato Brothers with the load of fill. They returned. I was there at the gate. I stopped them. They called you.
Well, it wasn't Phil, but it was Pachysandra, but okay, I'll take your word.
Well, listen, I think at this point, I've heard enough at this point. With a cease and desist here, which has been ignored to an extent, although the applicant's got, or not even an applicant, the gentleman's got an explanation for, he was trying to come into a compliance, but there's been no applications made. This is not an unsophisticated family. It seems to me, at this point, I think we get Vin involved, and we take whatever actions necessary to bring them into compliance. They seem to be, I mean, the gentleman is here, and he seems to be wanting to become into compliance. That's what he's mentioned. And that's terrific. But at this point in time, I think there's no other choice than we go forward and take whatever actions necessary to bring them into compliance.
I agree, and my point is, why delay that action? You know, this stuff takes time, and why let this continue when we can take legal action and get that into works, and if it comes into compliance, in the meantime, then we can always...
Retract it.
Yeah, we can retract it. So I see no reason to delay.
There should be no further activity there, it seems to
Absolutely
me,
not.
when there's a cease and desist.
Correct.
I mean, it's just...
Correct.
I can't imagine Scott Allen saying to the owners, well, just put up the silt fence without any further permits or any other...
Yeah, but...
That's what he did say.
Yeah, but see, if you dig up the site,
Right.
you do have to put the silt fence to protect what's left, even if he says,
'Cause
I
it's-
mean...
'cause
you know what I'm
it's-
So let me tell you, the
saying?
course of action was, we met on Thursday, and the only work that was just transpired there with regard to earth materials was the erection of silt fence.
Right, that's what I'm saying. If you dig it all up, you do
You
need to
have
put
to put
this...
in the silt
Right,
fence.
I think what Paul was saying, that was there additional work that was done.
Right.
That was, hey, listen, he's got, I don't know how many years' experience, I don't even want to ask. I mean, I've never heard him come to our board and say anything like this before.
Right, neither have I. And that's why I think we should take his advice seriously, and I look for a motion to refer this to the town attorney and go forward with legal action.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of moving forward with legal action signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
But you,
as I came in during the process, but
but
I
you
do
know
think
that it will be dropped as long as you comply.
Well, we were trying to, any way as
I
possible.
mean, just this way you'll move the application quicker.
Well, I appreciate it.
Attorney Marino would like to,
Should I step away?
excuse me?
Should I step away?
Yeah, he wants to address this.
I just had just a thought, since legal action obviously is going to cost expense on your side as well as the town side, and I'm not going to be able to get home tonight and put paperwork together to go to court tomorrow. Obviously, it's going to take a few days. My suggestion is, to the extent that a cease and desist has been issued, there should be no further activity on the property. That will give time, while I'm preparing paperwork as directed by the board, for there to be maybe a meeting between myself, Paul, and representatives on your side to try to bring this thing together before we have judicial intervention. But we will proceed so that we will go to court within a reasonable period of time from today. And of course, in the interim, if there's compliance, and Paul can make a report accordingly.
I don't think that any of us here were trying to dictate to you what the proper course of events
Okay.
was. I think the intent
No,
here was
just
to
to
pursue whatever's necessary to bring them into compliance.
Okay.
Yeah,
Very good.
Exactly. I agree. Okay, it's slightly past time to begin our public hearing. Certainly.
I got caught up in that.
That's fine.
When you start your public hearing, is there any chance that you have a quorum now that we can reconsider?
How much time do you need? Ma'am, how much time do you need?
Like 2 minutes.
Okay. Perhaps we can address this issue now. Judy, this is the 307 Racebrook Road, formerly Recreation Showroom. And we discussed this. They increased the stone. They've gone forward with the interconnection, although Webster hasn't finished yet, but they're going to put it on their land records. They had met with the police commission, got the approval from the Orange Police Commission, and are also implementing the recommendations from the state DOT, Ernest LaJoya, and we have the letter from him. Those were the issues that were outstanding. We couldn't vote on it because we didn't have a quorum because Paul recused himself on this. Do you have any questions on this, or would you like for the applicant?
with regard to the interconnection, will that actually be constructed or just on the land records?
I did hear back from Susan Curtis. However, we didn't connect with phone calls, but she's returning my call now, so
So it's hopeful.
it's hopeful. At any rate, the applicant at a minimum would have to provide the easement.
And the
if-
applicant is willing to do that based on what they said.
Yes. Yeah. So those were the outstanding issues, unless you had any other questions?
But the state DOT information has been put onto your plans?
Yes. And they met with the Town of Orange Police Commission and got approval
All the
from them.
sign-offs? Okay.
Would anybody care to make a motion?
I could make a motion to approve the site plan application submitted by property owner Ken Ginsberg for the property known as 307 Racebrook Road, formerly Recreation Showroom. The proposal is to modify the existing 9,087 square foot retail building to a 6,250 square foot medical/professional office building. And also to have the 2 easements on,
Well, the single easement on the land record,
or there's an easement for snow, wasn't there, or something?
but that was part of the DOT
Okay,
recommendation.
so
yes.
that, those
Yeah.
are all set.
Yeah. Okay, we have a motion.
Second?
Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion passes 3-0 with 1 abstention. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, thank you.
There was an abstention, he just didn't vote.
Oh, okay. Not abstention, that's correct, yeah. Tammy, that should be corrected. It wasn't an abstention, he had recused himself. So it was just no vote. Thank you, Paul. Brian? Brian, do you want to join us here? You might as well. Anywhere you can sit next to Judy. Yeah.
I very well might.
Okay. Scott did. All set?